Okay, so here we go.
Dilu, can you give us an introduction or
Yes,
what you want us to do?
I'm going to do it. Wait, I have got this message and I don't know what it is. Right. Okay. So good evening, all of you. And we would warmly welcome Auntie Nipuni. Nipuni Aki, Nipuni, Auntie Nipuni, Auntie Nipuni.
Auntie. Now it's auntie.
Auntie Nipuni for this presentation evening. So we've had some wonderful sessions throughout the week, and it's been a real treat. And so now these boys wanted to know who is going to judge them. So let me tell a few things about who you are. So Auntie Nipuni is one of my very best friends. And she's one of the brightest students I've ever met in my life. And she is one of the most qualified friends I have in my list of friends. And she was former head prefect at Museus College, a debater, and she's now a lawyer. She was also teaching speech and drama for quite some time, but due to her work, she had to leave that profession, but I know she still loves it and she loves working with kids. And Nipuniaki or Nipunianti is someone who sees the bright side of everything amidst all the chaos. And she's bubbly, she's crazy, and but she's brainy. So that is what you always have to be, right? You have to be nutty, you have to be naughty, you have to be crazy, but you need to be focused. So I invited Nipuniaki, Nipuni auntie, due to certain reasons. Number one, because she is a pro in this job. She is one of the best people to do this job because she knows all about speech and dramas, public speaking, and presentations, and all that, because she has worked in Rupavahini as a news anchor, and she also appears at corporate events. So she's had lots of exposure. She has traveled around the world. And the second reason why I invited Auntie Nipuni is she loves kids. As I said, she always sees the bright side and the positive side of everything amidst chaos. And number three, the most important one is, can you guess what it is? Number three is, for this bunch of naughty girls and boys, Nipuni auntie will definitely stand as a wonderful mentor, because she has taken part in lots of activities during school. I don't think she's ever been in the class, been with the books, just like me. But nevertheless, she has never failed in her work, in her academic work. So that is one of the main reasons why I picked Nipuni auntie, to make you understand however much, or whatever the number of activities that you do at this age, and as long as you are focused, there's nothing that you cannot achieve. Right? So as I said, she's nutty, she's bubbly, she's crazy, and she is the one to have fun with, right? But she's always focused. And she's someone who can do like more than one or two things at the same time. She can listen from this end, keep on typing, and do another thing on the other end. I've seen her doing it many times. Right? So, yes, so throughout this week, Nipuni, we have been able to appreciate their work, because every single person has put a lot of effort and into this activity. And I'm so happy and grateful for the parents who supported, because I had one kid joining us from a quarantine center on Monday, and to see the entire family was found positive. but yet the child performed, a 7-year-old little boy. And we had parents joining in from across the globe, fathers joining in just to see their kids performing. And well, as judges also, I had one joining from New Zealand, and Sachin did the previous session all the way from Abu Dhabi.
Oh,
And
right. That's great.
yes, Nanga saw Sachinta on the screen and she was like, "Siya kenek wage ayya kenek." Because he was with the beard and all. And then we had another past pupil of mine, one of the students from my very first batch, Avinash, who's a doctor now at the Hambantota Hospital. Amidst a very busy schedule, he also joined yesterday. So, and it's been an amazing week. Actually, a treat for me. Hope this session will also be the same. And I've clearly told all of them that they cannot read out everything that is on the screen, on the slide, that they will have to add a little bit more beyond that. And their topic is Wars of the World. So we are in for a treat, actually. And anything more, their time limit is less. It has to be less than 8 kila dunne, 5 dunne initially. But they were asking for more, because in the previous sessions also we realized that the time limit for them was not enough. So I had to extend it. So mostly between 5 to 7 to 8 minutes, they will be doing their speeches. And you got your Excel sheet? It's, yeah. Right. Okay, then. So yes, and I have asked them to rename themselves according to numbers. Because Devin wants to remain anonymous.
So I will see their faces, won't I?
Do you want to switch on the cameras?
I don't know, at least to say hi when you start. I'd like to know who I'm talking to.
Devin wants to remain anonymous. He says, "Mada mukutam menna hamadam."
At number 8, Devind. Okay, fine. But Devin, I know you're listening and I know your voice so well.
I don't think you will recognize his voice. His voice is changed now. Yes, yes. So
okay, before we start, there's like a couple of things that I should tell the kids. Hi, Devin Peretta, I can see you.
I renamed myself because you said that you wanted to see our faces.
Yes, I would love to.
I will switch on the cameras now and show the pretty faces to Auntie Puta. Take a screenshot.
Okay, teacher.
My goodness, look at Devin. I'm sorry, I'm so surprised because I've known Devin from the time he was born.
And actually,
okay, can I ask everyone to go on mute?
yes, mute the mics. And then anyway, we have a few students who joined just to have a look at the presentations.
Great.
So
So
they
how
are the
many
ones with
people
the
do we
cameras
have?
switched on.
Okay, how many people do we have today?
7, 8?
Presenting?
8. We have 8.
Nice. Okay, so we have a 1 hour's treat.
Senuki, are you performing, Puta?
Yes, teacher.
So we have 9.
Okay, great. So what did I want to say?
Rename. Okay. Puta, did you take a picture?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
super.
So now you can switch off the cameras and rename yourselves with the numbers.
I didn't even know you could do that on Zoom, so that's really cool. So, okay, first and foremost, I'm really embarrassed because I didn't expect such an introduction. But I also want to say that Dilushi has been one of my sweetest friends for, I don't know, most of my life. So she's known me, we both known each other since we were teenagers. So you can imagine how long that is. as
Yes.
longer than most of you being alive. So yeah, it's a long time. And I'm really glad to have this opportunity because, as she said, I really enjoy teaching. Unfortunately, it's even if you're really good at multitasking, it's impossible to do two things like that. Two big jobs, because teaching is a
Yes.
big job, and you guys are naughty enough to know that.
Yes.
I'm sure you drive Lucy up the wall. So, um, so I unfortunately had to give up teaching because I didn't have much time. Um, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to come back to it. You never know. You never know what
Mhm.
life brings your way. So,
Fingers crossed.
also, I wanted to tell you guys that I wore makeup for y'all. I have
Oh,
been
yes.
at home and I haven't had earrings on or makeup on for over a month. But for you guys, I put some on. So, you know,
Thank
to make
you.
it look nice. That's my way of telling you that this is special for me as well. And all I wanted to say was thank you, Dilushi, because you're always doing something innovative all the time for your kids.
Thank you.
And I've not encountered many teachers who are as dedicated and who are as focused on getting different skills out of kids. You know, who recognizes each child, who knows what they're capable of, who is always pushing you to do something different and new. So it's always a pleasure to work with Dilushi, watch her work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I hope you guys have made the best out of this wonderful teacher. And also, one of the things I just wanted to bring to your your point of view is that, I mean, you guys are not babies, so I can just talk to you like young adults, as you will be. So why is speech important, like learning to give this sort of speech important? It's because it does a lot of things for you in your life in the future. I know, you know, you've probably heard this a million times before, but take it from me, because I used to do all of this, mostly because I enjoyed talking. But it actually gives you skills later on in life. For example, well, I'm a lawyer, so it helps me a lot because it has taught me how to be confident, how to select facts and present them so that people are listening to me and understanding what I have to say. And it also helps me think on my feet, especially if I don't have a prepared speech, which is something that you guys will go to in the future. Or if someone asks you a question while you're talking, for you to be able to process the information and quickly respond. These skills are really important. The other point is that any job ever that you ever take up needs communication skills. You have to be able to talk to your colleagues, your family, your friends. You have to be able to talk to them and make yourself understood. So, exercises like these will always help you guys do that, because not only are you now selecting facts and presenting them to me, you're also focusing on how you speak, how clear you are, and things like how you change your voice, your modulation, your intonation. I'm sure you all know what these words are. All of those things are very, very important now and in the future. So just keep working on them. I just wanted to give you guys what you can expect from doing exercises like this. And finally, I'm really looking forward to this session because I'm a bit of a history buff myself. So I really want to hear all about the wars of the world, what you guys have to say. Great. Good luck, everybody.
So we'll start. Right. So number one.
This battle in 1559 was part of the Sinhalese-Portuguese War. It is one of the most decisive battles in the Sri Lankan history and is considered as the worst defeat of Portuguese during that time. According to local chronicles, the marshlands of Mullaria turned red with blood after the annihilation of the Portuguese. With this victory, Sitavaka emerged as a military power which will be able to challenge the Portuguese expansion. Good evening to all of you, and in this presentation, I'll be telling you all about a great renowned war in Sri Lanka, and that's the War of Mullaria. So I'll be discussing the background and the date of encounter, the battles, the casualties, and then we have the questions and answers, and finally the conclusion. So going on, the Portuguese arrived in Sri Lanka in 1505 and started trading. During that time, in 1521, King Vijayabahu VI, three sons revolted against their father. They overthrew him, had him murdered, and divided the kingdom among themselves. Leading to the events, which is known as the spoiling of Vijayabahu or the Vijayabah Koller. The eldest son, Bhuvanekabahu VII, received Kotte with the seaboard and ruled with the title of emperor. The second son received the principality of Raigam and ruled under the name King Raigam Bandara. The youngest son, who masterminded the mutiny, received the kingdom of Sitavaka and ruled under the name King Mayadunna Bandara. With Raigam Bandara's death in 1538, Mayadunna annexed the principality of Raigam and invaded Kotte. King Bhuvanekabahu VII, with the help of Portuguese, defeated the Mayadunna's invading forces, eventually paving the way to an uneasy peace between two kingdoms. The Portuguese wanted a war with Sitavaka, but King Bhuvanekabahu VII only wanted the Portuguese for defensive purposes and did not acknowledge the war. However, the death of King Bhuvanekabahu VII, his grandson Dharmapala took over the throne, but he was a lapdog of the Portuguese, and after an unproductive battle from 1557 to 1558 by Mayadunna, the Portuguese therefore laid plans to invade Sitavaka. It is widely accepted that the Portuguese army, led by Captain Major Afonso Pereira de Lacerda, was defeated by Sitavakan forces at Mullaria in the year 1562. But Portuguese sources provide a different picture. Pereira de Lacerda was suffering from malaria, which almost seduced him to a state of high fever. So Goa sent a veterinary commander named Jorge de Menezes for his exploits at the city of Borge, which lies in the Bay of Cambaia, to take over. He took over the office in year 1559 and claimed that he intended to finish the enemy that brought him to the island. De Menezes marched out, triggering the events that eventually led to the Battle of Mullaria. De Menezes had the office of Captain Major of Portuguese Ceylon from 1559 to 1560, which places the battle sometime after May 1559. The Portuguese advanced along the southern bank of the Kalini River through Medina and Viragoda towards Mullaria. Their objective was to capture the Matigama stockade, which was located in the northern bank. It was strategically located, which is currently known as Udugam Pitagama, controlling the river and land route to Sitavaka. King Mayadunna received the news of this invasion force and sent an army under the command of his son Tikiri Bandara towards Havagama. Tikiri Bandara was aware of the movements of De Menezes and De Mello and sent a force under Vikramasinghe Mudalali to check their advance. These armies met at the village of Mullaria 1 hour before dawn. The battle was short and the Sitavakans were defeated. They retreated towards Havagama, reviewing 200 dead and pursued by the Portuguese. Vikramasinghe Mudalali himself was wounded. Jorge de Menezes wanted to annihilate the Sitavakans and press the pursuit. These futile efforts exhausted the Portuguese and consumed their ammunition reserves. When the captains approached the Menzies regarding low gunpowder reserves, it led to the famous reply, "If there's no powder, they might load their muskets with sand, and if they did not shoot, they might finish the fight with the sword," because such brave Portuguese had no need of arms as long as they had nails and teeth. According to the Portuguese sources, only 15 soldiers were killed, 30 in the main battle, and 20 from their wounds after retreating the smaller stockade. According to Rajaweiler, 1,600 Portuguese and Lascrians, besides several courtiers and officers, were fallen. But both Portuguese and the local sources are silent regarding the number of Sitaka casualties. So now I give you all the time to ask questions.
Hi. Where did you get the Portuguese sources from? Those were quite good.
I got them from Wikipedia and under the topic called Battle of Mulleriava, and each of them were described in topics, and I took them in my own words.
All right. Okay, that's quite interesting. So what made you pick the Portuguese War? I mean, it's a lesser known war. So what made you think about that?
Actually, it's one of the well-known Ceylon wars. And after going through a lot of wars through Google, I found that this war was very significant to Sri Lanka. And the effect to Sri Lanka was also quite large. So I thought
How
of
so?
doing, like, it was known as the greatest wars that put out the Portuguese. They kicked out Portuguese out of Sri Lanka. But after this war, the Dutch and the English settled down to Sri Lanka. So basically it means that.
Yeah, sorry. Do you mean that the Portuguese were, I mean, this is the war that defeated the Portuguese? Did they go back, or did
Yes.
the Dutch defeat them finally? What happened?
Well, the Dutch and the English got together with the Ceylon people and they made plans to defeat the Portuguese people. And finally they met up, two armies met, and the Portuguese were defeated and were kicked out of the country.
Right. Okay. So that's quite an interesting period in history. Anything you know about, sorry, I don't know whether I'm off topic. Dilushi, can I ask more questions? I hope so.
Go ahead, no problem.
So anything you know about the impact of the Portuguese to Sri Lanka? What do you think was their main impact to us?
Well, actually, I think that most of the foreigners who came to Sri Lanka wanted the Sri Lankan heritage, the Sri Lankan blood, and the Sri Lankan knowledge. Our technology those days were much more improved than what is today. So everyone, actually the foreigners, they wanted to take everything. So because the kings those days were very powerful, there were many wars. And I think what the Portuguese did was, there was a huge impact with taking off a lot of Sri Lankan goods, killing people, Sri Lankan people, and the technology was also ruined.
Okay, you know what? I want to know whether you know of any lasting influence of the Portuguese to Sri Lanka. Do you know of anything? Any very lasting? I mean, it's common even today. Just trying to see whether you know that.
According to what I know, the Portuguese people married the Sri Lankan people and they put their generation down, destroying the purebloods, like, I mean, the people who were known as Helen during the ancient times.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Actually, some of the most evident and apparent things even today are in our names. Like, for example, Auntie Dilushi's surname Pereira is a Portuguese surname. Probably some of the most popular surnames in the country, Pereiras, De Silva, Fernando. All of those are Portuguese names. A lot of our language has Portuguese words like mesa. Sapatu, Kamara, Janela, those are all Portuguese words. So not all of it was bad. Oh, and the music, caipirinha, what we know as baila, also comes from the Portuguese. So, well, it's a mixed bag. Great. Anything else, Dilu?
No, that's fine. Akana, do you have any more to say or the conclusion?
Yes, teacher, I have the conclusion.
Yes, go ahead, Buddha.
This was one of the most few-pitched battles between the Portuguese and the Sinhalese. The Portuguese became extremely weak within their area, and the threat to Sitavaka from this direction ceased. Emboldened this victory, Mayadunna and Tikiri Bandara conducted a frequent attacks against the Portuguese and the Koti kingdom. By 1565, the Portuguese were unable to hold the capital of Kotte. They abandoned Kotte and moved to Colombo, which was guarded by a powerful fort and the Portuguese navy, with their puppet King Dharmapala. For 2021, it has been exactly 450 years since this war, and until today, we can see the ruins and images kept for the future generations. Hope you all learned something new and hope you all enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, number one. Number two.
Give me a second.
Dilushi, quick question. What is this column for seniors? Sorry, I'm asking about the marking
Well,
scheme.
yes, you can use that.
For these guys as well.
Yes. These guys are in the seniors, Lamade.
Okay. Go for it. You can start.
Sorry, teacher, there's a problem in my laptop. There's a big sound coming from my laptop. It's kind of hard to present it. Is it okay that I mute it and do it again?
Okay. We'll move on to number three then. Is it okay, Nipuni?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Number three.
Okay, teacher.
Camera off.
Oh, okay, teacher. Sorry. Shall I start, teacher?
Yes.
Good evening, all of you. Today, I am going to talk about a famous story of the Trojan War. So, what was this mortal affair which made the Greek gods divide into sides? Well, first of all, let's see the setting of this war. This war took place in Troy, modern Hisarlik, Turkey, and the period was the Bronze Age. The traditional dating goes back to 1194 to 1184 BC, while the modern dating goes back to 1260 to 1180 BC. The main outcomes of this war was the Greek victory and the destruction of the city Troy. The main cause was Eris, Greek goddess of strife and discord. Now that you have an idea about the setting of the war, let's see how it all started. The story of the Trojan War has been told and retold countless times, and most famously in the Iliad by Homer, who was the presumed author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, which were two epic poems that are the foundational works of ancient Greek literature. So let's see how it all started. Well, it all started with a beauty contest. All the Greek gods were attending the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, except for Eris, who hadn't been invited. But she showed up anyway, and when she was turned out, she threw a golden apple to the crowd of goddesses that was addressed to the fairest. So Hera, Aphrodite, Athena, all of them wanted the golden apple. And when they asked Zeus about the fact, he instead delegated the task to Paris of Troy and told the messenger god Hermes to take the goddesses to him. So when they met Paris of Troy, each goddess promised Paris a special gift if he decided in her favor. Hera promised to make him a powerful ruler, while Athena promised him wisdom and victory in battle. Aphrodite offered Paris the love of the most beautiful mortal woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Well, Paris chose Aphrodite as the recipient of the golden apple. So, who is Helen of Troy? Well, the most beautiful woman in the world was Helen, one of the daughters of Tyndareus, king of Sparta, and her mother was Leda. However, Helen is usually credited as Zeus's daughter, and sometimes Nemesis is credited as her mother. Well, of course, Helen had scores of suitors, and her father was unwilling to choose one for the fear that the others would try to take revenge. So, one of the suitors, Odysseus of Ithaca, proposed a plan to solve the dilemma. He suggested that Tyndareus, Helen's father, to require all Helen's suitors to promise that they would defend Helen's marriage regardless to whom she chose. So let's see what King Tyndareus's decision was. So this is King Tyndareus. So being the father of Helen, he chose Menelaus. It was a political choice on her father's part, and also Menelaus had wealth and power. And Menelaus inherited Tyndareus' throne of Sparta with Helen as his queen when her brothers Castor and Pollux became gods, and when Agamemnon married Helen's sister Clytemnestra and took back the throne of Mycenae. So you can see this is Menelaus. So Paris's visit to Helen. Paris went to Sparta to get Helen and bring her back to Troy. Helen at once fell in love with Paris when she saw him, well, as promised by Aphrodite. So let's see how this war originated. Menelaus and his ally Odysseus traveled to Troy, where they unsuccessfully sought to recover Helen by diplomatic means. And Menelaus then asked Agamemnon to uphold his oath, which, as one of Helen's suitors, was to defend her marriage regardless to which suitor had been chosen. And Agamemnon agreed and sent emissaries to all the Achaean kings and princes to call them to observe their oaths and retrieve Helen. And here the Achaeans are the Greeks. So Agamemnon was joined by the Greek heroes Achilles, Nestor, Odysseus, and some other heroes. So who is Achilles? Well, Peleus and Thetis bore a son whom they named Achilles, and it was foretold that he would either die of old age after an uneventful life or die young in a battlefield and gain immortality through poetry. And some sources state that Thetis bathed Achilles in the Styx, the river that runs to the underworld, making him invulnerable whenever he was touched by the water. Since she had held him by the heel, it was not immersed during the bathing, and thus the heel remained mortal and vulnerable to injury. Later, Achilles grew up to be the greatest of all mortal warriors. During the war, a fleet of more than 1,000 ships closed towards the city of Troy. The Trojan army was defending the great city of Troy, led by their king, King Priam. The walls of Troy was very strong, and according to Greek mythology, the Greek god Poseidon was said to have built the wall. Highlighted incidents during the battle. Achilles had a conflict with King Agamemnon and chose not to battle against the Trojans. But after some time, Patroclus, Achilles' closest friend, is killed by Hector, the son of King Priam. And with the rage that followed as a prime motivation, Achilles returns to the battlefield. He kills Hector, but he himself meets his death. He was killed by an arrow shot to his only weak spot, his ankle, shot by Paris. And this war lasted for more than 10 years. After some time, Odysseus comes up with an idea of a wooden horse. One day, the Greek soldiers sails off to the sunset, leaving a mysterious, gigantic wooden horse. But the reality is that there are Greek soldiers hiding inside the wooden horse. The Trojans were curious about this object, so they debated whether or not to take this horse inside their boundaries. Then, after much debate, the Trojans pulled the gift inside the city, but they didn't know that this will be their end. And when the night came, the horse opens up, and a group of Greek warriors climbs out and opens the city gates for the army that was coming in again. And they kill the sleeping population, creating a massacre. The Greeks then burned the city, and King Priam was killed, and Helen was taken back. So, if you were listening to this story vigilantly, you might come across places such as Castor and Pollux became gods, and also at the very beginning, the Greek gods were attending a wedding. So you might think, how could this story be real? Well, this person also had the same idea. Well, in the 17th century, Blaise Pascal, who was a French mathematician, philosopher, and writer, said that Homer produced a story which he offered as such and was accepted as such, for no one doubted that Troy and Agamemnon had existed any more than the golden apple. He did not think he was making a history of it, merely an entertainment. Well, having said that, in the 19th century, a Persian businessman named Henry Schielman had a visit to Turkey in an attempt to find the location of the Trojan War, and was able to find numerous archaeological treasures that corresponded to the correct location. Well, it turns out that there's more truth to Homer's tale than initially thought, isn't it? And also, modern archaeologists later confirmed that these findings correlated with the existence of a city and as well as its destruction. And also, here you can see some books written on the finding of Troy. If I read them, Memos of Henry Schielman, Troy and its remains, lost and found, golden treasures of Troy. And also, one of the most famous films directed according to this story is Troy. Troy is a 2004 epic historical war film directed by Wolfgang Peterson and written by David Benioff. The film features an ensemble cast led by Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, and Orlando Bloom. So, finally, let's see what are the lessons that are taught by the Trojan War. Well, the Trojan War offers various moral lessons about family, respect, leadership, and also other topics. In the book Iliad, written by Homer, it clearly states that war is futile, and having the courage to fight gives a man's life honor and meaning. But that war itself is tragic. We should learn to have self control, trust, and surrender. So, thank you very much for listening. I hope you got an idea about the Trojan War. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3. Nikuni, do you have any questions for her?
Yes, that was very interesting. Straight off, I think I should tell you that I really liked your slides. Those were really interesting. So what do you think? Do you think that the Trojan War actually took place?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
do you think that the Trojan War actually took place?
I think the Trojan War actually existed, but um, since there are archaeological treasures and all that founded by Henry Skillman, but there are those Greek gods and all that. I think the war is real, but not that parts of the gods and all that.
Not the fun parts.
Yeah, they are more like
That's who did you say wrote it? Homer, right?
yes, Homer.
Homer wrote. Um, so what made you pick the Trojan War as a topic?
Well, actually, I like reading a lot about Greek mythology and those a book series I think called Percy Jackson.
Oh, right.
Well, it made me choose this
Very
because
nice.
I was really interested about those. Yes.
I'm glad that inspired you. See what reading can do to us? I mean, it can really make us look for things. Right. So is there any other, like, other than Henry Shearman, right? That's the guy you said. Did you
Yes.
find any other kind of references to the existence of Troy or the existence of the historical people?
Yes, Henry Skillman was the main person. After his discoveries, a lot of other people also got interested, and they also started finding, and they were able to find a lot of archaeological facts too.
Right. Great. I found that really interesting as well. Greek and Roman history has so many interesting stories, and Greek mythology especially has so many interesting stories. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, number 3. Number 2, are you ready?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, start.
Teacher, can you see my screen?
Yes, Muta.
Good evening, everyone. Today I will be talking about the Second World War. So I will be discussing about the introduction of the World War, the Second World War, and the European theater on the Second World War and the aftermath of the Second World War. So, World War II was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. In total, over 100 million people was involved from more than 30 countries. The World War II was by far the deadliest dispute in the human history. So now I will be talking about the European theater. The European theater is broken into 4 main parts: the German aggression, the Battle of Britain, the USSR, and last, the Normandy invasion. So now I will be talking about the German aggression. The war in Europe began in September 1939. Germany invaded Poland under the command of Adolf Hitler. Britain and France announced a war on Germany. In 1940, Germany set an attack on Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. And now the Battle of Britain. In the summer of 1940, Germany set another attack on the Britain, but from air. The Battle of Britain was Germany's first military failure. The German Air Force was never able to conquer the Britain's Royal Air Force. And now the USSR. In 1941, Germany started its most determined power yet, by violating the Soviet Union. The Germans at first made swift progress and advanced into Russia's heartland. And at last, I will be talking about the Normandy invasion. In June 1944, British and American forces launched the D-Day invasion, landing in uh, German occupied France via the coast of Normandy. Soon, the German army was forced into retreat from that side as well. Thus, by early 1945, Allied forces were closing in on Germany from Soviets were the first to reach the German capital of Berlin. And Germany surrendered in May 1945, shortly after the suicide of Adolf Hitler. And at last, I would be talking about the end of the World War II, also known as the aftermath. The World War II ended with over 16 million soldiers and 45 million civilians deaths. The war in the European theater came to an end with the liberation of German-occupied Europe simultaneously following the below events. Western allies and Soviet Union, the USSR, invaded Germany. Berlin fell to Soviet Union and the Hitler suicide. Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945. And I would like to end my presentation with a quote by Adolf Hitler. Defend Paris to the last, destroy all bridges over the Seine, and devastate the city. Thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. I hope you guys had fun. Thank you.
Nipuni, you have any questions for him?
Yes, actually. First and foremost, once again, nice slides. Very well done. So I wanted to tell you that it was really good. And you pretty much summarized what World War II was about. However, did you, I don't know, did you have you heard about the Holocaust and what happened there?
Not really.
Sorry, my network is being funny. Okay, so what is one of the main things that you know about Adolf Hitler? I mean, you focused especially on the European theater for World War II. What are the things you know about Adolf Hitler?
I know he's a German, like a leader in the Germany, and
okay. Have you heard about? I mean, okay. What are your views about World War II, the German and European theater that you described? Like, what do you think it was a good idea, or have
Sorry,
any observations?
I didn't get you. Sorry.
Do you have any views or opinions on whether it was a good thing that Germany invaded all those countries, or what is your opinion?
I think it's a bad idea because we should have a peace in this world. I don't know why Germany did that, and yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something. Please don't be offended, but I think you need to do a little more research about Adolf Hitler, because not only did he invade all these countries, but his view was that the world should be led by an Aryan race, purebloods. So his idea of purebloods um, were these people who were blonde and blue-eyed, and he thought those were the best. And one of the main things, in the word I mentioned to you, the Holocaust, is where he took prisoner like 10 million people. He put them into slave camps and basically had them tortured to death. Like 6 million or something people died. So you should read up about it when you are doing things about World War II, because I think that's one of the main things that you need to know about when you're talking about the German theater of World War. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Right, number 4. You ready?
Yes. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, it looks like a movie.
Okay. This is a war that began on 2011. This is a war that killed over 11.1 million people. And this is a war that caught the world's eye due to its use of chemical weapons. And this is none other than the Syrian War. So, what is Syria? Well, Syria, or the Syrian Arab Republic, is a country in Western Asia bordering Lebanon to the southwest, the Mediterranean Sea to the west, Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, Jordan to the south, and Israel to the southwest. So, we've all heard of the word civil war. Even we Sri Lankans witnessed a civil war. But do we know the true meaning of civil war? A civil war is a war between two organized groups in order to take control of a country or the region, or to change the role of the rulers. And now, what is the Syrian civil war? The Syrian civil war is an ongoing multi-sided civil war fought in Syria between the Syrian Arab Republic, led by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and various domestic and foreign forces that oppose both the Syrian government and each other. So now, I said that there were various groups involved in this war, and that is nothing other than the terrorist groups in this country. The first one, ISIS, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Then the Al-Nusra Front, Hezbollah, Jais al-Islam, and Falaki al-Rahman. First, let's talk about the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as the ISIS, who bombed Sri Lanka in 2019, April 21st. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, known as the Islamic State and also known by its Arabic acronym Daesh, is a militant group and former unrecognized pro-state that follows a Salafi jihadist doctrine. And now, the Al-Nusra Front. Al-Nusra Front, after July 2016, and also described as Al-Qaeda in Syria and also as Al-Qaeda in Levant, was a Salafist jihadist organization fighting against the Syrian government to establish an Islamic State in the country. And now, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is an active Sunni Islamist militant group involved in the Syrian civil war. It was formed on January 28, 2017 as a merger between two terrorist groups. And now we move on to the person who started this war, and that is no one other than the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad. Bashar Hafiz al-Assad is the 19th president of Syria since July 2000. Yes, he's been ruling Syria for over 21 years. He is the commander-in-chief of the Syrian Armed Forces and the regional secretary of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party in Branch Syria. His father, Hafez al-Assad, was the president of Syria before him, serving from 1971 to the year 2000. And now, how can this person start a war? Well, the conflict began on March 15, 2011, against peaceful Arab demonstrators who demanded for their rights. They cried for their rights. They demanded everything that they need, but the Syrian government or President Bashar al-Assad deployed the military to kill every single protester. So that led to the Syrian civil war. And more than half of the military broke from the army and then joined the SAA, also known as the Free Syrian Army. And now we move on to, as you remember, I said that there are many countries involved in this civil war. And why are countries involved in a civil war? Well, Saudi Arab states are concerned that the Iranian armed transfers are changing the balance of power in the region and has become a regional contest for primacy in Syria between Saudi Arabs and the Iran-backed Assad government and Hezbollah of Lebanon. Iran is using the Maharaja Alliance to ship weapons to Syria. Well, at this point, Iran is not the only person who ships weapons to Syria. So does Russia. But the thing about Russia is Russia sends weapons to the rebels or the good guys, the ones who fight for the innocent people. So it says that Russia sends cargo planes filled with weapons, humans, soldiers, vehicles, rocket launchers, etc. on a daily basis. So that means that Iran is not the only person. There are many countries involved in this civil war. And why is Turkey involved in this civil war? Well, Turkey said the operation was an act of self-defense in order to shell themselves from ISIS suicide bombs and Turkish border towns. See, Turkey is scared that the ISIS might bomb them, but this is not the true story. Turkey is secretly trying to take a part of Syria, and they already own a part of Syria. Well, I will get to that part in a few seconds. Who is affected by this war? Well, nearly 11.1 million people are affected. About 6.6 million Syrians are refugees. Another 6.2 million people are displaced in Syria. Which brings the total up to 11.1 million people. And those 11.1 people need humanitarian assistance. And out of that 11.1 million people, half of that is children. So now, this is a chart showing the military placement or which country has which. So as of 31st March 2020, the Syrian armed forces held 63.57% of the Syrian territories. Syrian Democratic Forces held 25.57%. Rebel groups and other terrorist groups like Tahrir al-Sham held 9.72%. Well, in here, you might see the word Turkey. You see, Turkey says that it's an act of self-defense, but that's not true. They want to get control of Syria. And the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, also known as the ISIS, has 1.14%. And now, we move on to my conclusion. Well, the conclusion is nothing other than the futility of war, the uselessness of war. Well, war is sometimes pointless, sometimes profoundly appropriate. However, anytime a human seeks to destroy other humans, it's a sad and deplorable state of affairs. It is useful from some point of determining boundaries between countries. However, it is and always has been a pointless thing for the common folk. And thank you.
Nipuni, you have any questions?
Yeah, hi, sorry. Great. Can I ask everyone else to just go on mute? Okay, super. Sorry, there was some disturbance. What made you pick the Syrian War?
Well, the reason I picked Syrian War was the day before in news they talk about the Syrian Civil War because it's an ongoing war.
Okay. So I like the fact. I mean, obviously, we obviously believe that war is futile, and we all know this.
Yes.
But your conclusion for the Syrian War, what do you think? I mean, specifically about that topic, what would you have said?
Well, I
Do you
think
think it's a war that has a point, that has an objective? What is your view?
it has no point if Syrian President Bashar al-Assad just listened to the people and give them what they wanted. But instead, he deployed the forces and started killing people, which rose to the civil war.
Okay, great. Do you think the Middle East has been like a conflict-ridden zone for a long time? Do you know anything about it?
Actually, no.
Okay, so I mean, this is just extra knowledge. Read up on the more recent wars, because I think over the 1900s, essentially the Middle East has had a lot of wars, and the United States had a lot to do with them. So you should read about it. Okay, good job. Thank you.
And thank you for your feedback.
Right. Number 5. Who is number 5? Where's number 5? I can see someone. Are you ready, Pute? Even I can't remember who is behind the camera, even though
I think it's Tevidu.
Tevidu, number 5, is it you? No.
In my phone, miss.
Sorry?
Miss, there's a
There's a problem. Okay, we'll give you some time. Number 6.
problem. I can't share my.
Okay, can you go on talking without the screen?
Okay, miss.
Can you deliver the presentation, or I mean, rather deliver the speech without the slides?
Okay, miss.
Okay, start with it.
Would you like to email the slides to one of us, and we can run the slides for you?
Yes.
Sorry, miss.
Can you email or can you share us the slides? Then we can share.
Then maybe we can
Okay,
screen
miss.
share.
Okay.
Why don't you email Auntie Dilushi, and we'll take someone else until it's in her inbox and she's ready to share. That's good, right?
Wait. Oh, wait. Tevindu.
Yes, miss.
Devin wants you to try just once more, because he says that there was another slide shared when you tried to share. The previous slide was still on. Try, Pute. If not, you can WhatsApp me and I will share it. In the meantime, we will get somebody else to perform.
Miss, I'll WhatsApp you the slides, miss.
Okay. Yes, please. Yes, you WhatsApp.
Okay.
So number 6. Number 6, shall we start?
Okay, teacher. Teacher, can you see?
Yes, Puta, but not very clear. Pute, when you share the screen, there is an option at the bottom, at the left bottom, saying optimize video.
Teacher, I always do that when I'm doing presentations.
But it's the same, is it? No improvement.
Teacher, check now.
Okay, anyway, you start, darling. It's okay.
Why don't you? Yeah. Why don't you try slideshow, and that might help.
Yes.
From the Microsoft itself. From the.
No. From there. Now it's getting clearer. Put there's another tab next to what you have switched on animation. The next tab is slideshow. You click on the slideshow. Wait. And now you go from beginning. Click on slideshow.
Yeah, teacher. When I
Right,
go to
now
unmute.
you go to the left corner. From beginning.
Okay, teacher.
Click on that. Okay, right. It's not very clear though, but it's okay. Okay, you start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I welcome all of you for another exploring of a presentation, which is the War of Gondor. Our beautiful country, with full of natural resources and beauty, attracted hearts of leaders of other countries as it is today. Well, as an example for the attractive things which is in Sri Lanka, which includes waterfalls, fertile soil, geographical location, which is most helpful for the um, harbor activities like um, transportation of goods for other countries, and it's special. Our geographical location is special because when people when people go from one place to another, the navigation route is to across from our country, so they have a stop from in a harbor in our country, and then they proceed with their journey. And James and many more features attracted many people around the world. Sri Lanka was the main hub for tourism, as I said, and marketing. The businessmen loved our country, and also they had different ideas, which led for the Portuguese to first land in Sri Lanka in 1505, aiming to capture the entire island and take benefit. At the same time, motherland was split into several kingdoms and ruled by several kings. By 1619, the Portuguese were in control of the kingdoms, except for Kotte, Sitavaka, Jaffna, and Kandy. To fulfill their desires, the Portuguese attempted to capture Kandy in 1594, 1603, and 1630, but they were defeated on all three occasions. After the death of King Senrath, kingdom of Kandy split into three parts. His son became the king of Kandy as Rajasingha II, and Rajasingha's cousins Vijayapala and Kumarisingha were given control of the Matale and Uva areas. Dear honorable panel of judges, dear teachers, and my dear friends, the Battle of Gandharva was a battle of the Sinhalese Portuguese. The war fought in 1638 between the Portuguese forces and the native Sinhalese king's army at Gandalur in the district of Kandy, Sri Lanka. The Portuguese had attempted 3 times without success to capture the kingdom of Kandy. King Rajasingha II became the king of Kandy and started discussions with the Dutch to defeat Portuguese. Portuguese never gave up. They provoked the Sinhalese people against the king. By Army Captain Diogo de Melo de Castro, King Rajasingha was severely against the Captain Castro. In 1638, Captain Castro determined to attack Kandy and called their army to proceed towards Kandy. The Kandy city was evacuated by the Sinhalese. At the time Portuguese invaded, sacked and burned the city and started to return to Colombo. However, their way forward was blocked by the Sinhalese army at Gandalur. The Portuguese forces were surrounded with all escape routes were obstructed, which was one of the war systems Sri Lankan used, which was high in techniques. On 28 March 1638, the Sinhalese army attacked the Portuguese forces, leaving only 33 soldiers alive, along with a number of mercenaries. The heads of the killed Portuguese soldiers were piled before the Sinhalese king, Rajasingha II. The battle, which ended in victory for Sinhalese army, was the last battle fought between the Portuguese and the Sinhalese, and was also the final battle fought by the kingdom of Kandy. The Portuguese were driven out of the country by the Dutch. Soon afterwards, King Rajasingha II had an aim to get control of the whole country, but the cunning Dutch cheated the king by signing a fake contract of negotiation, and they captured the kingdoms which were under Portuguese control, but the Dutch couldn't conquer the kingdom of Kandy. They couldn't do that because they were not used to fight in hilly areas, and that in that way Kandy was saved from the Dutch uh, army which came to conquer the Kandy district, kingdom. So I hope all of you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for listening for my presentation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Pute. Nipuni, you have any questions for him?
Yeah, hi, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm never sure with my phone, with my computer. So, great. That was very interesting. So what made you pick this topic about one of the Sri Lankan wars?
Sri Lankan wars. I like a lot of Sinhalese, like our national wars and a lot of things about our country. So when I was skimming through the history book, I found out the Battle of Gandhara as an interesting topic for me to share. So I thought to share this topic with all of you.
Okay. Do you think the Battle of Gandhara, among all the various wars that took place during our colonial times, do you think it had a major impact on our politics, on the colonial powers? You said it was the Portuguese, right? Do you think it had a big impact?
No, actually, the Portuguese were greedy for our country and they want power. So that's what happens for when power comes in front of everything. People lose when you keep power in front. Portuguese, they have done a useless thing because I don't know whether they know that our country have that much strong forces. So if they know, that means they have done a high risk because only 33 were saved from the war. So that's pretty much useless. But I think King Raja Singha too did something wrong by signing the contract of negotiation with the Dutch, because Dutch was a very extremely cunning uh, uh,
Force, yeah. Good point.
force.
They were very cunning, actually.
They were very
And
cunning.
they took
They,
over a lot of countries in the world like that.
yeah, but they even couldn't the take down the Kandy district, which means we had a very strong forces in our country, and our country is very beautiful. So that's not a surprise that anyone would like to capture, because no one will not stay without capturing our country because of the beauty.
Good, great. Good to hear. Actually, yes. I mean, I don't disagree at all. Our country is very beautiful. But why do you think that all these European powers wanted to capture us? Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, not just beauty, obviously. That's not the first thing they think about, no, when they come to a country. What do you think? Why do you think
Uh,
they came here in the first place?
they will be able to uh, have money a lot by selling, because our country has a fertile soil, uh, and you all may have heard that if you throw a seed or something, it'll grow in the next week or something. So
Do you think the European powers were here to do agriculture? I mean,
no,
okay, the British were here and they were here for a long enough time to do that. Why do you think the Portuguese and the Dutch came? I'm just testing what you think. Why do you think they came?
uh, because of the geographical location.
Nice.
When
Okay. And how does that help?
Because now when we are traveling in the sea, we have ship routes. So uh, almost all routes which goes to the other side of our country have to go from the only way is going from the route which is next to our country, no other way around. So they can, it's easy for them. They can drop some containers or goods for a site and go. So, and it's very useful because they can sell a lot of things. They can transport things from one place to another. That I mean, from our country, and it's easy to even give for exchange it for another ship or something. So the location, I think, attracted lot of I mean that the port all our enemies for our country and to start this war.
Nice. Very good. Yes, you're quite right. Actually, why the Portuguese and the Dutch mostly focused on us, you're right, is the location. And because the ancient trade routes fell across our country. So this was the sea route for the Silk Route. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. So we were very strategically important in that sense. And even to this day, you're right, because of our location, we are very strategically important. So good job. Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buddha. Okay, so we go back to number 5.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the American Civil War. A civil war is a war between people who live in the same country. The American Civil War was fought between the northern and the southern states. It lasted from 1861 to 1865. The war was triggered by the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Now let's see how the American Civil War began. The American Civil War began in April 12, 1861. The American Civil War fought between two states, Northern and Pacific states. The states that were loyal to North were called the Union. The states were loyal to South were called Confederate states. Causes of the American Civil War. Number 1. Economy. The Northern economy relied on manufacturing and the agricultural. Southern economy depended on the production of cotton brought on the war. Number 2. States' rights versus federal rights. State rights are called political rights and powers granted to the state of the United States by U.S. Constitution. Federal rights were not allowed by the government interfere with the powers of the states reserved to them by the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Number 3. Slavery. Slavery caused civil war because they were being treated unfairly by the South and the North. Number 4. Election of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is the former President of the United States. Abraham Lincoln ran on a political format opposed to the expansion of slavery in the territories. His election served the immediate impetus for the outbreak of the Civil War. Now let's see how the American Civil War ended. The American Civil War ended in 1865 when the principal Confederate armies surrendered, and when Union cavalry captured the fleeing Confederate President Jefferson Davis in Georgia on May 10, 1865. Resistance collapsed and the war ended. The Unions won the war, and after the war, rebuilding a united nation free of slavery began in 1865 to 1877. Conclusion. I think every human being should have equal rights to live whoever they are. Thank you.
Nipuni, you have any questions?
Yeah. So I think my main question, as I would ask everyone, is what made you pick the American Civil War?
American Civil War is a world. It is a world famous war, and it killed like 600 million, 600,000 people, and
How did 600,000 people die? Just in the war, or are you talking about the slaves as well?
by the war.
In the war itself. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay, what do you think was one of the main differences between the northern states and the southern states?
Economy.
Okay, do you think that they had differences in beliefs, like what they thought would be a good way to rule and manage? Do you think there was any difference in that?
It is a bad way actual. By killing people, it's not good to rule, and people would like if they have peace in the country.
Of course, of course. No, what I'm trying to get at is, do you know that the northern states believed in more equal rights, but the southern states had a lot of slavery related issues? You talked about Abraham Lincoln, right? He set
Yes.
a lot of the slaves free. What do you know about slavery?
Slave.
Do you know that a lot of black people were brought in from Africa to be slaves on the cotton plantations?
No.
Right. So you should, I mean, when you're reading about the civil wars of America, you should read some of their stories. They're really interesting. A lot of them were bought, well, kidnapped basically from Africa. And they were brought to America and they were made to work on these cotton plantations. Sometimes not enough food or water, sometimes no shelter. They were beaten. They were treated like animals. It's very sad, and that is uh, one of the basics um, of the American Civil War in that sense. The southern states tended to do that, the northerns didn't. So that's another aspect of the American Civil War that you should probably read about in the future. Okay,
Okay.
great, interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Hi, right. Now we have to move on to number 7. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we move on to number 7. Yes. 6 or 7? Sorry. 6 performed, number 7. Number 7, are you there?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Good evening, all of you. I'm Hansali. Today, I'm going to do a presentation about World War One. Here are the subtopics. Initiation of the World War One, main facts about World War One, countries which fought, impacts of the World War One, results of the World War One. Yes, let's see how did it initiate. World War One began on 28 July in 1914. It also known as the First World War, Great War, or the War to End All Wars. Uniting Germany. In the beginning of the 19th century, there were many countries which spoke German. Otto von Bismarck, the great leader, united those countries and formed the country Germany. In 1870, Bismarck declared war against France. From that day on, Germany and France became enemies once and for all. William II, the German Emperor, father of Germany, Bismarck was contented of making a united and powerful nation. In 1887, the German Emperor William II was not contented about Germany. His intention was to conquer many countries and make Germany powerful. By this, other countries had a doubt about Germany because they thought that there would be a war. Main facts about World War I. Competition for colonization. In the middle of the 19th century, powerful Europe countries were establishing colonials in Asia and Africa. This was like a competition. Britain invaded many countries and ruled them. After uniting, Germany needed to find a trade market for their products. When Germany explored Asia and Africa, Britain was afraid because they thought that it would be a threat. France was isolated from Europe countries due to the action of Bismarck. After defeating France, Bismarck spread his power over the two fertilized areas, Alsace and Lorraine, which France previously owned. Then Germany was afraid because they thought that France would war against them to get revenge. So, Germany built up a good relationship with powerful countries in Europe. As a result of this, France was isolated from Europe countries. Because of this, there were two parties. Assassinating the Prince of Austria. The Prince of Austria, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife were assassinated by two Serbian spies. Austria thought it was an attempt to a coup. So, Austria demanded compensation from Serbia, but Serbia refused it. So, Austria declared war against Serbia on 28 July in 1914. Countries which fought. There were two parties in World War I. They were Central Powers and Allied Powers. In Central Powers, there were Germany, Austria, Turkey, Hungary, and Bulgaria. France, Great Britain, Russia, and America belong to Allied Powers. In this map, yellow color shows the neutral countries, red color shows the countries belong to Central Powers, and green color shows the countries belong to Allied Powers. In the beginning of the World War I, America was neutral. American passenger carrying ship Lusitania was destroyed by Germany. Because of this, America declared war against Germany. Impacts of World War I. There were 20 million deaths and 21 million wounded persons. The total number of deaths included 9.7 million military persons and about 10 million civilians. Loss of economy. Results of World War I. Allied powers defeated Central Powers. Countries belonging to Allied powers attacked Germany continuously, and drastically economic fell down and there was a famine. Then German army rebelled and dismissed the German emperor from power. Because of this, Allied powers won the war. World War I ended on 11 November 1918. Versailles Treaty. Versailles Treaty was one of the most important peace treaty. It was signed in 28 June 1919 in France. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, number 7. Nipun, you have any questions for her?
Hi, yes, I do. Okay, so why did you pick World War I?
Because I had an interest in learning about wars, and I think and World War One is interesting, and that's why I choose it.
What do you think was the main objective of World War One? Now, World War Two, we saw had like Hitler trying to take over the world and spread his idea. Um, we have the American Civil War, which was on economy. What do you think was World War One?
I think Germany united, and the other countries had a doubt, and that is why I think the main thing
So, do you think it was for land, or was it for like trade, or like they just wanted to make sure that their land
Could they speak
powers
a
would
bit
be?
louder? Could they speak a bit louder?
Hello? Hi.
teacher.
Number 7. Speak a bit louder, Pute.
Okay, teacher. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Yes, nice and clear. No, I was just asking you what you thought was the reason for World War One. Do you think it was like the German states were trying to consolidate their power and they were trying to make like a bigger land, or do you think there were economic reasons? Do you know of anything of that sort?
I think Germany wanted to conquer many countries and make Germany powerful, and
Nice.
I think that is
Great. Yeah, good idea actually. These are old wars, so not everyone knows many things about it. So good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 8. Are you ready now?
Yes, teacher, one moment. One moment, teacher.
Okay.
Okay, teacher. Good evening, my dear teacher, my dear judge, and my fellow friends. Today, I'll be talking about the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was a long war that lasted for about 30 years or so between Saigon, Laos, the United States of America, and of course, Vietnam. This war turned out to be one of the darkest pages in the American history book. And this war was also intensified by the Cold War that happened during this time. In the end, more than 3 million people had died, and more than half of them were Vietnamese. Before we move on, I would like to talk about Ho Chi Minh. Now, you may be wondering, who is Ho Chi Minh and why am I including him? Well, Ho Chi Minh was one of the main people in the Vietnam War. Well, I'm not sure if his name is Ho Chi Minh. In fact, no one does. Records show that he has been living with more than 70 different names and lived in thousands of places. Anyway, Ho Chi Minh was born in Nguyen Sinh Cung in Vietnam in May 19, 1890. He had signed a petition with some other Vietnamese and had gone to France, where the 28th president of the United States of America, Woodrow Wilson, had gone to make the world have a better future. During this time, the French had taken over Vietnam. The petition was to make Vietnam an independent country. And when they arrived, they did not find President Wilson anywhere. But they gave the petition to his secretary, and the secretary promised to give the petition to Woodrow Wilson. But still, there is no evidence that he ever did. After that, he went back to Vietnam and started to rebel against the French. He had also participated in a demonstration against the French Empire, and then he was marked for arrest. And due to this arrest, he fled from Vietnam. By 1940, the Second World War had begun. Germany had already taken over most of Western Europe, which included France. And because of this, the French had to leave. And almost as soon as the French left, the Japanese invaded Vietnam. Due to this, Ho Chi Minh returned to Vietnam after 30 years and became a communist and created a force called the Vietnam Independence League, also known as the Viet Minh. This force grew very quickly and mostly depended on guerrilla warfare tactics like hit and run strategies that the Americans used some 30 years later. 3 years after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the American government were looking for ways to undermine Japanese forces in Vietnam when they were contacted by Ho Chi Minh. The CIA had provided the Vietnamese with weapons and also trained them. The Americans called their followers and soldiers the Viet American Army. Ho Chi Minh told the Vietnamese to rise up and take control of their country before the French could re-establish their order. In the 2nd of September 1945, the Japanese surrendered. And now the Second World War was finally over. Thousands of people had gone to Hanoi to see Ho Chi Minh proclaiming Vietnam an independent country. But by then, the President of the United States of America, who was Franklin Roosevelt, was now dead, and his successor, Harry Truman, became president. By then, the Soviet Union had taken over most of Western Europe, had taken most of Eastern Europe, and wanted to spread further to other countries like Turkey, Greece, and Iran. The Cold War had begun. A new nation. After the French surrendered and left Vietnam, an armistice was signed, splitting Vietnam in half. The civilians of Vietnam had 300 days to relocate to their preferred destination. And almost 90,000 refugees went to the South, seeking a life free from communism. The South was known as the Republic of Vietnam, with ZM as its president. In the North, Ho Chi Minh and the communists implemented land reforms like the ones under Mao, which killed thousands and imprisoned. The Viet Cong were willing to break the peace and head south along a trail which was named after Ho Chi Minh, the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The army was called the National Liberation League, also known as the NLF. Operation Rolling Thunder. After President John F. Kennedy's assassination, his vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, was in charge. During this time, the USS Maddox was destroyed by a North Vietnamese torpedo squadron. The advisors of the US president urged retaliation against Vietnam, but Johnson argued back by saying that a second attack had to happen to justify retaliation. Soon after, American sonar operators convinced themselves that an attack had occurred. Because of this, America launched bombs for the first time in Vietnam, destroying Vietnam's ships and oil facilities. Due to this, Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Cong destroyed American helicopters and bombers, and later the American army launched another set of bombs, but this time it was different. Johnson had changed his policy from retaliatory bombing to an all-out attack, which was launched on March 2nd, 1965. This attack was codenamed Operation Rolling Thunder. Still, the Viet Cong continued to fight against America, but America could not surrender because they were too heavily invested and could not be humiliated. The ground troops from America. After President Johnson launched Operation Rolling Thunder in Vietnam, he sent ground troops. 3/4 of the South Vietnam was under the rule of the NLF, moving their weapons and supplies through Laos and Cambodia and the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Americans thought that if they damaged the trail sufficiently enough, the NLF would not be able to gain their weapons. So 3 million tons of bombs were dropped on the Laos portion of the Ho Chi Minh Trail alone. Back in America, General Westmoreland claimed that the Americans could win in a 3 years' time. He sent an urgent cable to Washington asking for 200,000 more troops. Instead, President Johnson sent hundreds and thousands of troops to Vietnam, who had to go through a very hard and rough terrain, which was also filled with booby traps, like the two-step Charlie, the keepsake loose hand, and the don't look down. By the end of 1967, more than 20,000 American soldiers were dead. The Tet Offensive. The NLF had planned on launching an attack on the South Vietnamese on January 31st, which was the first day of the Vietnamese Lunar New Year celebration, also known as Tet. The NLF attacked South Vietnam. After this, the trust of the American civilians was broken, and Johnson withdrew the American armies and brought back the soldiers, and the supplies given to Vietnam was cut in half. But still, the war continued for years. Now, I would like to answer your questions.
Great. That was a good presentation. Why did you pick the Vietnam War?
Because when I was searching through wars, I saw that the Vietnam War really touched my heart because it was one of the wars that was actually not created by a specific thing, and it was not created by any wrong deed, but only to restore and create Vietnam to an independent country. And America had come into this war to avoid humiliation and not look weak. I chose this topic because it really touched my heart and opened my eyes, because it shows that people can be stupid at times to even cause wars with others, and in the end cause deaths and create traumatic experiences for everyone.
Do you think that it was a good idea that that America invaded Vietnam? Do you think it was a good idea that they went to war?
No, but America mainly wanted to help the South Vietnamese. They first started by helping the North Vietnamese, which were the Vietnamese, which was not cut in half, because they wanted to get the Japanese and the other invaders out. And after that, when Vietnam was cut in half, they saw that the South Vietnamese were in danger because they were very innocent and they did not want any trouble. So they mainly focused on helping the South Vietnamese.
Okay, great. And yeah, I think that's about it that I have. What else have you heard about the Vietnam War? Have you heard about any music or any songs or anything that was written about the Vietnam War?
No, but they did use songs for the soldiers' entertainment, of course, because it was really somewhat like a trend at that time for the soldiers.
Correct.
And yeah, that's.
I think Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind, if you have any chance to look it up, was written about the Vietnam War and all the young people who were sent off to war there. I think that was it.
Yeah, because more than 500,000 American soldiers were sent there, and most of them died.
Correct. So that's great. Good presentation. I liked it. Thank you.
You
Thank you,
have
ma'am.
do you have a conclusion? Do you have any more to say for that?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
In the end, the Vietnam War ended with the North taking control of Vietnam, and Vietnam became an independent country. More than 500,000 Americans had died by fighting pointless battles and claiming lands that were soon traded to the enemy. So I shall conclude my presentation by saying that the Vietnam War will be one of the darkest and most frightening days in history. Thank you.
Right, number 10. We don't have a number 9. Okay, number 10. Who is number 10? Number 10. Are you a performer?
What happened to our number 9?
There's no number 9. Name napuru ikila dagara na number 9 එකක්.
Ayyo.
10. Who is this number 10? I sent a message.
Senuki.
All right, start Puta.
Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. What I'd like to present to you today is about World War II. So I'll begin by showing you the main points of my presentation. I see this working. Topics. Difference between World War I and II. Outbreak of the World War II. World War II in the West. Hitler versus Stalin, Operation Barb toward Allied victory in World War II, Battle of Blutch, World War II ends. Casualties and legacy of the war. Results. While the epic wars that the whole world had faced is the First World War and the Second World War. The First World War was fought from 1914 to 1918, and the Second World War was fought for 6 years since 1939. These are the largest military conflicts that human race has witnessed till now. And the difference between World War I and World War II is that the First World War was fought with motive of acquiring territories and colonies, hence imperialism was the cause, whereas the Second World War was based on the domination of ideologies like fascism, Nazism, and communism, leading up to the World War II. In late August 1939, Hitler and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin signed the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, which incited a frenzy of worry in London and Paris. Hitler had long planned an invasion of Poland, a nation to which Great Britain and France had guaranteed military support if it were attacked by Germany. The pact with
Parliament, Hitler would not face a war on two fronts once he invaded Poland and would have stood itself. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland from the west. 2 days later, France and Britain declared war on Germany, beginning of the World War II. On September 17, Soviet troops invaded Poland from the east. Under attack from both sides, Poland fell quickly, and by early 1940, Germany and the Soviet Union had divided control over the nation. World War II in the West, 1940 to 1941. On April 9, 1940, Germany invaded Norway and occupied Denmark, and the war began in earnest. On May 10, German forces struck through Belgium and the Netherlands in what became known as Blitzkrieg or Lightning War. Italy's fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, Hitler, the Pact of Steel. On 14th, German forces entered Paris, a new government formed by Marshal Pilkey Patton, France's hero of World War I, requested an armistice 2 nights later. France was subsequently divided into 2 zones, one under German military occupation and the other under Patton's government, installed at Vichy, France. To pay Hitler turned his attention to Britain, and to pave the way for an amphibious invasion dubbed Operation Sea Lion, German planes bombed Britain extensively, beginning in 1940 until May 1941, known as the Blitz, including night raids on London and other industrial centers that caused heavy civilian casualties and damage. The Royal Air Force, RAF, eventually defeated the Luftwaffe, German Air Force, in the Battle of Britain, and Hitler postponed his plans to invade. Hitler versus Stalin, Operation Barbarossa, 1941 to 1942. By early 1941, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria had joined the Axis. On June 22, 1941, Hitler ordered the invasion of the Soviet Union, codenamed Operation Barbarossa. Technology was largely obsolete, and packed up the surprise invasion by mid-July. Arguments between Hitler and his commanders delayed the next month, and it was too expensive and onset of harsh war. On December 7, 1941, 360 Japanese aircraft attacked the major U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, taking Americans completely by surprise and claiming the lives of more than 2,300 troops. The attack on Pearl Harbor served to unify American public opinion in favor of when the US declared war on Japan, with only one dissenting vote declared war on the United States. After a long string of Japanese victories, the US Pacific Fleet won the Battle of Midway in June 1942, which proved to be a turning point of the war. On one of the southern Solomon Islands, the Allies also had such battles from August 1942 to February 1943, helping turn the tide further in the Pacific. In mid-1943, Allied naval forces began an aggressive counterattack of amphibious assaults on two Japanese-held islands in the Pacific. This island hopping strategy proved successful, and Allied forces moved closer to their ultimate goal of invading the mainland, Japan, toward Allied victory in World War II, 1943 to 1945. In the Eastern Front, a Soviet counteroffensive launched in November 1942 ended the bloody Battle of Stalingrad, which had seen some of the fiercest combat of World War II. The approach of winter, along with dwindling food and medical supplies, spelled the end of the German troops there, and the last of them surrendered on June 6, 1944, celebrated as the day. The Allies began a massive invasion of Europe, landing 156,000 British, Canadian, and American soldiers on the beaches of Normandy, France. In response, Hitler poured all the remaining strength of his army into Western Europe. Soviet troops soon advanced into Chechnya. The Battle of the Bulge. While Hitler gathered his forces to drive the Americans and British back from Germany, in the Battle of Bulge,
I have lost your voice. I've lost your voice, my dear. Hello?
Uday, we can't hear your voice.
Offensive of the war.
Hello? Hi. We can't hear you. We didn't hear anything about the Battle of the Bulge. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Hang on. Can you try? Do you have many more slides?
No.
I'm just thinking if you can switch off your presentation, because it's messing with your voice. I can't hear anything.
Now can you hear me?
Not really.
Not
Your
clear,
voice is
Uday,
breaking
not
up.
It's lagging. Puta, what auntie suggests is you switch off the slide and you go on with your speech. Okay. Go on, Puta.
Just say from the point that you stopped about this slide,
Battle of the Bulge. Continue.
The Battle of
Yes, continue.
While Hitler gathered his forces to drive the Americans and British Bulge, December 1944 to January 1940 the war. Germany surrendered in February 1945, and by the time Germany formally surrendered on the country, Hitler was already dead in his Berlin bunker. Of July to August 1945, US President Harry S. Truman, who had taken office after Roosevelt's death in April, Churchill and Stalin discussed the ongoing war with Japan as well as the peace settlement with Germany. Post-war, Germany would be divided into 4 occupation zones to be controlled by the Soviet Union, Britain, the United States, and France. On the divisive matter of Eastern Europe's future, Churchill, Truman requested to Stalin as they needed Soviet cooperation in the war against Japan. Heavy casualties sustained in campaigns at Iwo Jima, February 1945, and Okinawa, April to June 1945, and fears of even the hostile land invasion of Japan led Truman to authorize the use of a new devastating weapon developed during a top-secret operation codenamed the Manhattan Project, and the atomic bomb was unleashed on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in early August 15th. The Japanese government issued a statement declaring they would accept the terms of the Potsdam Declaration, and on September 2nd, US General Douglas MacArthur accepted Japan's formal surrender aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. World War II, casualties and legacy. World War II proved to be the deadliest international conflict in history, taking the lives of 60 to 80 million people, including 6 million Jews who died at the hands of the Nazis during the Holocaust. The results of the World War II: a light victory, fall of Nazi Germany faces Italy and Imperial Japan, a light military occupations of Germany, Japan, Austria, and foundation of the Italian Republic in place of the Kingdom of Italy. Beginning of the nuclear age, dissolution of the League of Nations, and creation of the United States. Emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as rival superpowers, and beginning of the Cold War. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I hope you all enjoyed.
Okay. Right. You have any questions for her?
First and foremost, my goodness, you've done a lot of research and you've collected a lot of facts. Why did you pick World War II, and how did you do all of this research?
It took me a whole week to complete this presentation.
Okay, where did you find the information from?
In the internet.
Just random, like different sites, is it?
Yeah, different sites. I heard about Hitler and the World War II, but I never knew what happened during this war. So that gave me more interest to find more information about this war and chose this topic for my presentation.
Okay, great. That's good. So, okay, you thought, yeah, fair enough. The Hitler wars, Hitler and all of those were very important. Great. Okay, as feedback, I think the one thing that I should tell you is that there was too much information, because when people are listening, they can't absorb as much information as you gave, right? So hereafter, your slides were really nice, but in future, when you're doing a presentation about a topic, try to cut down the information. Just give us very specific bits about what you want to say, and put them all together like a story so that people will find it interesting, and you can keep their attention, because this was a lot of information to process. Okay, that's all I want to say, but good job.
Teacher, you're muted.
That's
Noted.
Okay, mute කරන්න unmute කරන්නයි මට මතක නෑ.
It's okay, teacher.
Right, so that's it. Now, the conclusion, marks, and your feedback if you have to talk to them individually, if you want to talk to them individually. Lost for words?
And I forgot to unmute myself as well. Okay, individually is scary.
Yes.
Okay, but I'll give you general comments. I have made comments on my little Excel sheet. So I think the first thing is, for all of you guys, there is a good balance between facts and presentations. Okay, there is always a what we call a sweet spot. You can't give people too much information because no one is going to be able to process it, so you lose their attention. And you can't sound like you're reading off a paper. Unfortunately for some of you, all of you sounded really nice, but unfortunately for some of you, you did sound like you were reading off a paper. And I also felt that a lot of you, when you did your research, got a lot of big words that you may not have understood. That doesn't help. I don't need to hear the big words. Nobody else does. If you don't understand it, you shouldn't be using it. But that doesn't mean that you should never use big words. If you want to use big words, you need to know them, you need to learn how to pronounce them, and you need to actually absorb it into your head before you start. I heard words like armistice. I heard words like casualties that no one pronounced properly. Okay, the word is casualties, not causalities, casualties. I heard Hitler's name pronounced wrong. I heard the word war, very specific, it's war. Okay, war. So it's very important that you open your jaw. Also, guys, when you're putting a presentation together, if you're talking about something that happened in the past, focus on your grammar and always use past tense. Another point that I saw was a lot of you were quite passionate about what you were talking about. But yes, you're trying to convince your audience, but don't forget that you have to give them not opinions. You have to give them facts and figures. So if you have sources, not everything, but very important facts, say, for example, I saw some of you all had got information from the BBC. So you can say that the BBC says that this number of million people died in the war, right? For example, you should say it like that. And the next point is, except for one or two of you, your slides were a little too detailed for a presentation, right? So don't put so many words. Use keywords, point them out. You can use a picture that is relevant. You can use all these various tools. Don't forget the end point is that you're trying to engage your audience and nothing more, right? I mean, if you guys go around any of those wars you mentioned, there's enough to fill books and books and books. You're trying to tell me something in less than 5 minutes. So condense and include pictures and keywords where relevant. What else did I have for you guys? Right. Finally, coming back to presenting, use your voices, girls and boys. Use your voices to present, to emphasize, to go a little faster, speak a little slower. Use your voices to their best effect, because that is what you need to get your audience, and that's what speech is about. I think that's about it. I just want to specifically mention really good slides were on the Trojan War and the final presentation on World War II and the presentation on World War I. I think it was the presentation on World War One, where number 7, where the flow of the speech, like what to expect in the speech, was stated right at the start. So we kind of had a structure in our heads. Yeah, all of you were pretty relevant to your topic. Individual comments, the Battle of Ganorua, the intro was a bit too long and therefore it became a bit irrelevant. World War II, the last presentation, unfortunately, I felt that you spent a little too much time on World War One as well. So again, it became, I wasn't very clear where you were going with it. Yeah, I like the slides overall. I'm just looking at all the comments I put down. Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered it. So do you want me to announce who I think was first, second, and third?
Yes, announce first, second, and third.
Okay. Ooh,
and perhaps a little bit of a reason why you picked them.
Sure. I'll start with number 3.
Yes.
You figure out who number 3 is?
Need to total.
Yeah, that's done. Okay. Right. I have a number 3, which was the first presentation on Second World War. Number 2, my third place.
Number 2, who was number 2?
Second World War.
Kulindu.
Oh, good.
Well done.
Number 2.
So, yeah, the Second World War. My main points were good slides, very good research. You could have been a little more interactive. But overall, I found that you had a good flow and good language usage and so on. So, good job. The third place. In second place, I have the Syrian War. Who is that? Who?
Me! David.
Well done. Congratulations. I'm going to give you a clap.
Thank you.
So my main problem with yours is that you spoke very well. And your pronunciation and everything was good. But my main point was that you had too many opinions, but not, it was not objective. Okay, so do you know what objective means? Like, it shouldn't be so much your opinion, you should be stating facts. An opinion is good, but we don't need every part of that speech to be opinionated. If you're going to give me something about the facts of the Syrian War. Okay?
And
that was actually
nicest voice, right?
No, I didn't. So well done.
Yes, well done.
I see your voice is changing a lot. Yeah, I thought once again that it was well researched, but you need to reference your sources. Actually, yours is the one that I saw had a lot of points that you brought up, but I didn't see any sources as such referenced much. Whereas,
so you mean that I should, if I took something from Wikipedia, I should mention Wikipedia?
On your slide, yes, but if you want to make a very specific point, like say, okay, the death toll as at January 2021, according to the BBC, is this. Okay, if you want to say something like that.
Thank you.
Syrian War. Okay, what were my? Another point that I saw in yours, because you had a very engaging way of speaking to the audience. Yours is probably the speech that had the least number of difficult words and actually engaged your audience. But you need to watch pronunciation of your difficult words. I haven't noted down what
The problem was I couldn't ask Google or Ami the pronunciations of the terrorist groups.
I know, that's okay. So listen to some videos or something.
They didn't mention that a lot.
It's not necessarily the specific names. It's more the words, like general words that you use about conflict. They have certain ways of pronunciation. Just look them up, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that was Syrian War, and my first place is the Trojan War. Speaker number 3.
Speaker number 3.
Hey, who was that?
Run with me.
Chrisit.
Run with me, Trojan War. Run with me. Raise your hand.
Where are you?
Museite, the girl in pink.
Can't see a girl in pink.
Run with me.
Ah, run with me. Okay, well done.
Another museite.
Well done, and yay for Museus. You're both in the same floor. What I liked about it was superb slides, I thought. Very interesting, very well done. Very interactive. Voice was clear, good modulation. Again, watch out for pronunciation of difficult words. There were some words that you didn't pronounce properly. Yeah, I really like the fact that you use these various sources, like your historical figures, movies, everything was really nicely presented. So you have scored a 91, which is a clear, clear first place. Everyone else is in the high 70s to the mid 80s. But yeah, for me, Ranutmi was the speech that really engaged the most. So everyone, I hope you take away something important from here. It's just that engage with your audience. You have to know who you're talking to and keep them interested. Okay, and being clear and pronouncing well is very, very important in such a situation.
Right, shall we take a picture before we go?
Sure.
Yes, Akana, Hansari.
Yeah, I'm going to put my head out and then look nicer for you.
Switch on the cameras. Okay. Akana, Tenuka? Akana, Tenuka? Let me camera on කරගෙන හිටපුවා off කරගෙන.
Okay, තමයි නැගිටලා ගියත් දන්නේ.
Okay, right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
How's it?
චුට්ටක් ඉන්න මගේ laptop එක අපේ according to my son it's an Archie. An old Archie, that's what he calls it. It's a bit slow.
Okay, wait. You're taking a screenshot, right?
Yes. Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Nipuni. It's almost 2.5 hours of your precious time.
I enjoyed it.
We all loved having you. And I think this was the longest session and also the most interactive session out of all what we had. So, is there anybody who would like to say something to Nipuni auntie? Tenuka? Kacha. Open your mouth and say something.
No, Tisha, it was really fun, and Nipuni auntie, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Actually, it was really interesting because you guys have done some research, and I mean, I've heard of all of these things, but I didn't know so much facts. So
yes, so all of you did a good job, and not winning today does not mean that you're a loser. You have to remember that. It's just that you need to do a little bit of work a little bit harder, do better next time, and let's see what I have in store for you for next month. I'll definitely come up with something interesting because I know you all of you did a superb job this time. Thank you so much, Nipuni, once again. Thank you all of you, and a big thank you to all the parents behind the screens. Let's give a big round of an applause to
Tisha, no one's here, Tisha.
No, there
Volunteer
are people
parents.
that is behind the screens.
Yeah, behind the screens, yeah.
Yes.
Currently listening from the other room, so.
Okay.
Ah, that's what they always do. Good jobs, guys. Everybody, very, very nice.
Thank you so much, Nipuni. Thank you. Okay then, bye-bye. Stay
No
safe.
problem.
God
Bye,
bless.
Tisha.
Bye.
Bye, Nipuni
Good
auntie.
night. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.